we kind of went over a bigger show, and we're gonna Kieran and I are just gonna preview the Minnesota game that's coming up tomorrow. A pretty big game, as it turns out. I think if Colorado can win this game, I really think they have a chance to gain some momentum going into Pac-12 play, beat a solid Big Ten opponent in Minnesota. And it's an early game, kind of disrespectful if you ask me, but we're gonna have to see. Kieran, I wanted to get your thoughts on this upcoming game tomorrow, and see what you want to look for in the Buffs so they can pull out the win tomorrow. I think our good friend Kieran is frozen, so I'll take over. All right. Essentially, what it comes down to me is our defense is going to play great again. I'm really not worried about that. It's going to come down to the offense. While the showing in A&M was expected against a team with a top 5 team with a really solid defense, this Minnesota team, while good, their defense is prone to the big play, and I really think that while we really haven't seen it from this Colorado offense yet, because we really haven't seen a lot of a consistent either run game or pass game or a big play action game. It's really going to come down to see if Brendan Lewis can be efficient. Can he trust himself with the ball? Can he make the throws more than 10 yards downfield, all the while complementing this really good running game that kind of got shut down in the A&M game? That if it gets going, I think those two type of things are going to complement each other really, really well. So for me, it's really about the offense. But Kieran, I want to hear from you. What are the things that you're looking for that Colorado needs to do in order to get this win?
I mean, yeah. So I think that, as we talked about on Monday, that they really need to show trust to Brendan Lewis, right? I mean, I really want to just see Carl Durrell and the offensive coordinating, staff trust Brendan Lewis to throw the ball a little bit. I think, we've got a really good wide receiver core that is very capable, and so I think that's number one. Is I'd like to see Brendan Lewis be able to put the ball in the air a little bit and see how, and sort of test how good our passing game is against a respectable fellow big Power 5 team. Mm-hmm. And so that's number one thing that I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see us also kind of show confidence in the running game as well. I think that's what worked for us against Texas A&M. It's what worked for us against UNC. It worked, it worked briefly against Texas A&M before Texas A&M realized that if they were willing to shut down the run game, we weren't going to put the ball in the air. But so I just think, and so what I think that really leads to generally is just a diversity of playmaking on offense. I think our defense is staunch. Our defense, they're reliable. They displayed that against Texas A&M, and so I think that there's nothing that I'm really eager to see from them other than just a good performance. I don't want them to let their guard down after having played a good game against Texas A&M and think that they're sort of off the ropes a little bit there. But I'd really like to see Brendan Lewis be able to step up, put the ball in the air, and then see a good just mix of play action, stuff like that, and just see how diverse this offense really is. And maybe they'll prove this wrong, that they'll put it in the air and we'll see that we've got a wide receiving core that can't really step up to the plate, or Brendan can't really handle that pressure just yet, as sort of a first year quarterback playing D1 Power 5 football. But at least as of right now, I feel like we've yet to really sort of test diverse offensive play against a respectable opponent. So that's what I'm sort of most broadly eager to see the most.
I think an overarching theme that they definitely struggled with this last year. They did fine with it against UNC, and then kind of broke down in the A&M game, is playing a complete 4 quarters of football. This was a big problem last year when they were scrapping out games 38-35, where they just fall asleep in the second half after they racked up this 35 to 14 point lead. And I think if the A&M game, sure, you can blame it on the fact that A&M had that good drive, but truth be told, come to think of it, CU didn't play a complete 4 quarters of football. They played about 3.5, And then, unfortunately, that defense ran out of steam. The offense went nowhere after scoring that touchdown, and it caught up to them. And they just, I don't say they stopped caring because that's not true. They just stopped, like, they went away from what was good, and they stopped doing what was helping and what was good and what was getting yards and getting first downs and keeping that A&M defense in the field. And it came back and it bit them in the butt, and they lost that game. And I think against Minnesota, like you said, I think there's some room to tinker around and to experiment, especially with Lewis. And I'd love to see him throw the ball more than 10 yards downfield. If he can't do it, fine, but at least try it. Because if he can prove that he can be consistent within the 10 to 20 yard passing game, complementing that along with the fact that this run game, once it gets going, is really, really good and basically unstoppable. That offense becomes a really well-oiled machine. What it does is it keeps Minnesota's defense on the field. It keeps our defense on the field, which helps them catch their breath, recoup, go over what needs to be done, and put points on the board at a consistent clip, which they did against UNC and then lost against A&M. And there's many reasons why we went over it on Monday. But I think for me, outside of the fact that the offense needs to get going, I think as a team, as a whole team, I'd love to see them play 4 hard, consistent full quarters of football.
And yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think that, the reason that we, have generally fallen short of that in, the past 2 years at the very least is because we've relied on our defense, and the defense can't, they just simply, it's impossible to be able to just rely on your defense to make plays through 4 quarters of football. I mean, on that last drive against Texas A&M, there's a ball that slipped through Nate Landman's hands, things like that. I mean, some of that can, be attributed to a little bit of a focusing or whatever. I'm sure, he wouldn't make any excuses for it. But I mean, if we're talking about it realistically, the guy's been on the field for the majority of, the second, third, and fourth quarters. And then as a result, that's when mental lapses start to happen, on the defensive end of the football as well.
Yeah.
And so then, so as a result, the offense needs to do their part in terms of keeping the defense off of the field. And, just whether that's either, going to, a certain part of the game that is, they find a weakness in the, in the Minnesota defense, and they just, hit it as hard as they can or whatever. And then, I think also, we saw one field goal, sort of really like attempted field goal against Texas A&M. Obviously, it didn't pan out the way, that the special teams would have liked. However, I would like to see, us also find our rhythm, in terms of being able to rely on the special teams to be able to, put up 3 points if we at the very least get in the red zone and go 3 and out as well. I think that, and so, broadly, I think that then what this kind of boils down to overall is a confidence thing, right? It's a matter of like us just developing confidence for, the games to come. Sort of, I think that while Texas A&M and putting up a good fight against them, gave us some confidence. There's definitely aspects of our game that the coaching staff and the players have a little bit of reticence about. And so I think it's a matter of getting sort of back on our horse, across, the entire, both sides of the football. And then being able to like at least sort of enter Pac-12 play with a little bit of, full head of steam.
I think for me, as I watched back, I watched the highlights of the A&M CU game, and I listened to what the commentators are saying, and consistency. It's like they say, CU is a talented team. Like it's not like that A&M game was a fluke, that we just performed out of our minds and A&M didn't. We had the talent to beat A&M and to beat the best of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and maybe not Alabama. I won't push it because let's be honest, anybody's going to get crushed by Alabama. They're a fantastic football team. That being said, this Colorado team has so much talent and so much depth. And like you said, it's having the confidence, not only in themselves, but the coaches having confidence in this team to make plays and to take risks and to let Brendan do his thing and to mix the passing game with the run game, and then mixing in Lewis's ability to extend plays, and then just filtering out players, because you have such a deep team that no one needs to be on the field for 10 consecutive plays, get a rest, come back in, fresh legs. It's such an advantage that the coach, that like you said, this coaching staff needs to instill this confidence, that not only should the players have confidence in themselves, that the coaching staff needs to have confidence in their players to be able to perform at the level that they did against A&M, because if they perform against A&M, like if they perform the same level that they did against A&M, they can beat anybody in the Pac-12. They can win the rest of the season. It's just about being consistent and having that confidence, like you said, to do it consistently.
And I think I agree. And I think one of the things that was the biggest difference between between last year, a lot of what we saw sort of over the course of last year, and certain and even over the course of the last 3 to 4 years, with CU teams was a lack of discipline, both offensively and and we saw it defensively too. But certainly offensively, I mean, it's the kind of thing where offense is our own worst enemy. So we'd make great plays. We find LaVisca for some long 60-yard pass or something, or Katie Nixon or whomever, and and then have some really awesome scoring drive, and then turn around the next time defense gets a stop, offense gets the ball, and then we're turning it over and sort of being our own worst enemy in that way. What I think is a massive difference between those teams and between really just Carl Durrell coached CU teams thus far, I think, under Sam Neuer and then now under Brendan Lewis, is that if nothing else, they're disciplined. They're disciplined in terms of like their decision making. Generally, there's going to be mistakes, sure, of course, like that's to be expected. But they're far more disciplined than Colorado football teams have been in the past. And I think that then being able to rely on that discipline and have and let that discipline sort of be able to fuel the confidence that you and I are talking about in terms of like being them just like finding their mojo both offensively, defensively, on special teams, whatever. It's like a matter of just being able to know that they do all the little things, that they do a lot of the little things right, and sure, there's going to be mistakes here and there, and when they make a mistake they fix it. And so I think that like allowing that to be the thing that then sort of just allows them to sort of find their swagger a little bit against Minnesota. I think a win against Minnesota then, as a result, first of all, I think is likely. I mean, if I were to put my money one way or the other, I would put it on the Buffs right now. And number two, I think it would be just an awesome resume builder, to add on top of whatever sort of Pac-12 success we might have this year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think looking past this game, like you said, my money's on the Buffs. It always will be, but I think especially now with the confidence they got out that A&M game, even though it's a loss, like we discussed earlier this week, it's a good loss. It's not a problem. Get this win against Minnesota, and going 2-1 in this non-conference schedule is a win. Many people had us going 1-2 with the only win to UNC. Taking that momentum into ASU against a very good ranked ASU team, where if we can put up a fight, and like I said, we don't have to win, but if we're competitive for 4 quarters of football and we lose by single digits, that's a win in my book. Come home, win the games you're supposed to. This team, I will repeat throughout this season, has the talent. This is arguably one of the most talented CU teams since 2016 when they made that run to the Pac-12 championships. This team has potential. This team is young, and they're already showing flashes of how good they can be. If they can break out, be consistent, and be consistently good like they've shown. I mean, this team truly is one of the best in the Pac-12, and I think it starts tomorrow with a win against Minnesota.
I completely agree. I think it'll be interesting, as we've talked about, with wanting to see some of the passing game. We don't even know who Brendan Lewis, has sort of developed, strong dynamics with in terms of his receivers and stuff like that. We saw him go to Dimitri Stanley at the very end of the Texas A&M game to try and get that first down. He fell a little bit short. But I like, that's part of what I'm curious to see, right? Is like, what do the dynamics of this team really look like? And I'd like to see that, sort of fleshed out a little bit tomorrow in terms of, like who are Brendan's, sort of go-to receivers? Like who's number one, who's number two? Like, I mean, we know who's been talented in the past, but like that doesn't say anything because it's a new quarterback, it's new team dynamics, and it's, it's only Carl Durrell's second year, like on the head coaching staff. So I think, to see him put some faith, in Lewis, to allow sort of some of those dynamics that, they've been developing through training camp and stuff like that, play out. And then let Dan Cheverina, do his thing on the offensive coordinator, on like doing his offensive coordinating, job. Like, I think that, that allowing everybody to just do their jobs, remain disciplined, all of that, I think that we're absolutely right that CU's got all the pieces in place to get a win tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think before we go, I want to ask you a final score prediction and then a offensive player of the game and a defensive player of the game, and I'll go after you.
All right. I think so. Final score prediction. I'm going to give it 34 CU. Win over 27. No. I take it back. 34-21. CU win over Minnesota. I'm going to say offensive player of the game is going to be Jarek Broussard. I'm going to say defensive player of the game is going to be either Nate Landman or Christian Gonzalez. I mean, he played really well on the outside. So I don't know. I'd say one of the two. But how about yourself?
I'm going with 28-21 Colorado. So right around the same. I think my offensive player of the game is going to be Lewis. I'm predicting this is his breakout game. He's going to do it both with the arm and the leg. And then he kind of took my defensive. I'm going with Christian Gonzalez. I mean, that kid has all the confidence coming off that A&M game.
Yeah.
He was locked down. He played unreal, and he just showed, like we said, that this team has so much young talent that even if it's not this year, even if it's not next year, but 2 years from now when this team is all juniors and seniors, I mean, this team's going to be insane. So, we got to wait for tomorrow. I'm confident. I'm excited. It's an early morning game. It should be good. Should be fun. But yeah, as always, Kieran and I want to thank you so much for coming. We know we had 2 shows this week, but next week we'll be back to the 1 show, full 30-minute slate. As always, follow us on Twitter at our handles below our faces. We like to post a lot of hot takes. We got to also interact with our other fellow Dash Sports hosts and get into some friendly Twitter wars, which are always fun. But with that, we will see you next week. Go Buffs.